Welcome to the Sparky Coach podcast. This platform was built by Sparkies for Sparkies. We simply exist to make business owners more profitable, or businesses more profitable and more predictable. So we want to work with people that work hard because we love working hard too, that work smart because you got to be on top of the business, people that are kind because no one likes a dickhead. Am I right? People who want results because that's what we're here for, right? And people who want to be part of a like-minded community. So if you're interested in hearing more about the platform, please reach out and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the Sparky Coach podcast. Crowy here, coming at ya. Hand sellout, straight solo. What a time to be alive. This is my time to shine. Nah, just kidding. Going to talk to you today about the December Jan Playbook. So we've got this really cool spreadsheet called exactly that, the December Jan Playbook. And to timestamp this pod will come out September 30. And there's only so long before Christmas. You're going to have October, November, and then half of December. And so there's realistically 11 to 13 weeks, depending on how turbo you're going to go. And we want to start thinking about our end of year now because most people think about January in January, and we want to start to think about January now. And it's so interesting to talk about, is it too early? I guess, when is a good time? Because next month's too late. We're about to hit the busy season. If you're in aircon, you're going to have that one hot day and things are going to go absolutely bananas. If you're electrically and you're in the project game, chances are you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff ready to hand over come December. And if you don't, light a candle to the trade gods because you might have a relatively cruisy run in. But chances are you got a bunch of stuff in the pipeline. And even if you don't have a bunch of stuff in the pipeline, so let's take this two ways. You've got a whole bunch of stuff in the pipeline. Now you've got the only deadline that happens every single year, which is Christmas, right? At no point throughout the year is there another stop traffic? We're stopping work for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. It doesn't happen. Christmas is the only time that happens. So if you're really busy, you've got X amount of work to get in before said deadline, and you're going to need to forecast that out and work out, do you need labor? Do you need, if so, what kind of labor? Do you need labor hire, apprentices, subcontractors to hire a tradie? Because it's so important to be looking at labor, not looking for labor. Now, project-based electrical is so interesting because it's the only time you can get away with, and don't hear what I'm not saying here, but if you've got 4 of your staff members on a project, you can handle an average tradie. Like as long as they're average to good. Average to good tradie, or even average tradie running a project by themselves or running a small job, train wreck, absolute train wreck. A players want to work with A players, but an average to good tradie coming under 2 of your top people with your top apprentices on a project, drilling holes, putting cable train, like they can be like just sometimes you just need hands on deck. And anyone that's been through what I'm talking about will know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just need people passing solar panels up, passing tray up, passing something up, driving a scissor around, like doing some stuff, just doing stuff because you are under pressure. And the trade world in a certain structure is one of the only times in life you can get away with that. If I had someone average on this podcast, you would know about it. Like if someone average was delivering this, you'd be like, hey, that person sucked. But someone average under 3 people really good can be okay. And okay is sometimes exactly what you need. So don't hear what I'm not saying there. I'm not saying to employ average people. I am saying there's a time and a place for things, and you got to know what you need and what your company needs to sort of bring it in. In saying that, I do believe that average people drag everything down. And we've done a whole bunch of podcasts on this, a whole bunch of theories on this. You don't want to be on the wrong side of a bad to average staff member. But don't hear what I'm not saying there. Hopefully you picked up what I was putting down. So what do you need as a project sense coming in to that gap? And that gap is Christmas. And will that job run over Christmas or not? Or will those jobs run over? Is there a severe start and stop date? Yeah, we finish on the 22nd and we're back on the 15th. Some building sites we used to work at shut down for the whole of January, and some of them shut down to the 7th or the 14th, and some of them rolled through. Couldn't have cared less. They just rolled through. So you got to know and speak to and have conversations in around this. And the best conversation, I always felt like you want to be having one additional conversation rather than one less conversation. So if you can have one extra conversation, you go, oh, now I know that site comes back on the 7th. That's much better than not knowing. Knowing is a lot better than not knowing. I think we'd all agree with that. So start to plan that out. And January is the December, January period, so beautiful when you can actually have a holiday and when you actually know when people are coming back to work in January. And December, January is an absolute train wreck when you don't know when you're coming back. You don't know what time you're finishing. You don't know what staff member's coming back on what day. You're not sure if you've got enough money in the bank and to carry you through that. And you're not sure how much work you're going to have in January. So if you're looking at a whole bunch of work, you want to plan that out. If you're looking at not so much work, you got to be aware. Or as Scar says from The Lion King, be prepared. You got to be prepared for this, because if you think next month's hard, wait till you get to January with no work. That's going to be an absolutely diabolical train wreck. And it's my theory that the best clients you have will be what I like to call January clients. And let me explain that here. The best clients you have, in my opinion, are January clients. Like they work in January. They basically roll through. So you can reference that to a building site. You can reference that to a commercial bakery that bakes bread on Boxing Day, January 25th, December 25th, November 25th, whatever 25th, doesn't matter. They're baking bread. Why? Because Woolworths buy their bread. And that's a real client we had. They made bread for Woolworths. And I think they're the best kind of clients because they can give you work year round. And I think so often in business, what you want to find is good clients that give you repeat work. And if you can do that, and retain those clients, you can start to build the foundations of what is an excellent business. So you want January clients. Another good example of January clients might be a building site, like a builder. It might be a commercial client. It might be a facilities manager, because people's lights still trip in December 27. It also might be schools. Fantastic client. No one is going to argue that they are top tier clients. Schools are fantastic. They keep you busy during school holidays. They usually have a deadline. Kids aren't at school and teachers aren't at school, so I've got a window of opportunity to complete this work. That is great work, because while everyone is scratching for work in January, you're looking at work, which is absolutely fantastic. And you want clients to carry you through those essentially quiet times, which, if you play your cards right, they're actually busy times. So I would almost argue that, how do you know if a client is excellent or not? They can give you work in January. That is top tier excellent clients. Real estates, I don't personally love real estates, but some of the members do really well out of them. So I don't want to write it off, because it's not my thing to write something off. I think you've just got to understand how that industry works, or how that sector works, and then operate accordingly. But real estates, why? Because people's power go out, people's lights go out, and people still need sort of work done. So what you want to be doing is starting to put things in place now to chase those January clients. Now you might be looking at a ghost town schedule, and don't give up. Don't give up. You just need one or two things to fall in your favor, and you'll be okay. And you might be looking at a stacked and packed schedule, in which case that might lead you towards, hey, do I need to hire? Now, one of the most underrated plays is having it being a bit more readily available in November and December. Why? Because everyone's so busy. Everyone's eyes are focused on their one deadline. This is why it's actually quite important to holiday throughout the year too, as a business owner. If you've got your one holiday and it's, December 22 to January 10, you're going to take it and you're going to trip over, and you're going to probably get sick because you've been so busy, and then you're just going to be like collapse over the finish line and be like, everyone else can get stuffed. I'll see you guys on the 10th. And you can almost take this like aggressive part, like, don't contact me. This is my one break for the year. I don't get a chance to wind down. And that's terrible. for a customer service industry. You know what I mean? You don't want to be on, you don't want to be on the wrong side of aggressive tactics. Like, and this is, I'm a massive believer as well. I know I'm sort of bouncing around everywhere here, but sort of go with me. I'm a massive believer. If people don't have to know you're shutting down, you don't have to tell them. So a lot of people just go, we're not answering the phone and we're having a break and it's well deserved. And a lot of times a partner's running Instagram, they're like, oh, Joey's worked really hard this year. He needs a break. Our family deserves this. And I'm not saying your family doesn't deserve anything. I hope your family gets a whole bunch of holidays, but if you're going to put that message about shutting down out to your ideal clients, they're probably going to respect that and be like, oh, you know, Joey has worked hard. I've seen him here a lot, and the family does need a break. So if an emergency shutdown comes in or something I need to be done like urgently, I'm not going to call them because they're away. So I'll call the next person. If that next person they call, if they bypass you because you're having this aggressive holiday and they get to the next person, next person's excellent, you can lose a client. There's always a dream situation as a business owner that you get chipped in somehow because someone won't answer their phone or someone's away or someone doesn't have the capacity. That's the kind of you like live for these moments as business owners. Do you guys know what I'm talking about here? Like, is everyone picking up what I'm putting down? When that rival company drops a ball, hello, like I'm going to be here to pick it up. And you don't want to drop the ball if you don't have to. So it's like, you might have to suck it up and work for the first 5 years of Christmas business ownership. Like, if the client doesn't stop, you should stay open, essentially. Now, the goal would be eventually someone else is on call, someone else is wrangling that. But anyone who's done something of substance in a business sense, they'll have someone on call. Make no mistake about that, unless they run quite an interesting business where all their clients shut down at that point and they genuinely just don't care. Hey, if the phone rings, I just could not care less. But as you're growing and starting a business, it's my opinion that you should stay readily available to the people that can use your services. Now, I wouldn't, in saying that, I wouldn't go out and just like do anyone's PowerPoint on December 27. But if it's a good, excellent, great client, yeah, you might want to consider that you might want to stay open at a certain point or not just highlight the fact that no one is there. That's a very relatively controversial take, but hopefully you get the spirit behind that. But a good to great Jan would set up a good to great year. So we just start thinking about January now. My goal is to get you starting to think about January now, because otherwise January is just going to happen to you. And most people I know early on or even like coming into it have been ruined by a bad January. So January can take you months to recover from. So especially, I used to do two different ways, and early on in business, I remember I used to just get to the 23rd and just trip over and be like, oh, the van's an absolute mess. Everything is everywhere. It's absolute carnage and chaos. When are we coming back? I don't know, maybe the 7th, maybe the 14th, maybe the 21st. I guess I'll just see if the phone rings or not. So, and that would happen in two different ways for me. The first way is we were really, really busy, had a whole bunch of stuff to fill in the gaps. And realistically, I'd tell Elodie we're coming back on the 14th. We're coming back on the 7th, actually, because we're so busy. We've got a whole bunch of stuff on. Or we're actually quite quiet. And I'm like, well, I didn't actually organize anything or book in anything. And I've had my eyes solely fixed on this finish line that now I've woken up in January 5th and I'm like, I don't even know where the first 2 to 3 weeks of jobs coming in. So I love an organized January. The goal should be that January is completely booked out by the time December comes to an end for you. So on the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, whatever day that is for this month, for this year, sorry, the goal would be that January is booked out to Australia Day or something, or, you know, if you don't agree with that day, whatever, the 26th of January, the goal would be that would be awesome. Now, here's the thing. During that time, you're going to get companies drop the ball, and you want to be the person, like I said, that picked it up. So if you can have a little bit extra availability, that can be your best friend at that point. If you can not just trip over on the 23rd and just land and Christmas, if you can thrive up until that point. And what does it mean to run a thriving business? I would say your product always remains of a high quality and a high level. And obviously on site, incredibly important. Your product on site has to remain, it has to stand the test of time. It has to be still good in 50 years time, 100 years time. 100 years might be a little bit of a stretch considering I guess a lot of stuff's uncharted 100 years down the track, but like 50 years, 30 to 50 years, your workmanship has to stand the test of time. But also product is offsite too, right? Product is we answer the phone and we get back to quotes. And if we can't get back to quotes, we tell them, hey, unfortunately, we can't get to you this side of Christmas. And this is so absolutely underrated, communication. So a lot of people in November and December, they'll get that phone call, they'll get that email request, they'll get that quote request. They'll be like, oh, I'm so busy. These people are so annoying. And the thing you would have killed for, you know, when you're quiet, work, you're now shunning because you're too busy. And this is where you want to stop and be like, okay, sweet. You have to always operate like you're quiet. That's my philosophy, right? You have to always be like, if I was quiet, I would get back to that person. If I was quiet, that quote's going back on time. If I was quiet, I'm getting to site and I'm looking at that. If I was quiet, I'm diligently approaching the client when I'm there. Hey, your board might need an upgrade. As long as it's legit, that's you just got to be thorough when you're on site. You've got to be thorough when you're on site. So if you're quiet, you're doing all those things inherently probably pretty well. So your goal would be when November and December coming at you and you're really busy, you want to still be responding to the client, like answering the phone. Yeah, cool, all good. Look, we can get the quote back to you. Unfortunately, this side of Christmas is really tight. Is it something you could consider doing in January? Now, when you ask that question, you're going to immediately gauge if it's possible or not. So a great example is, that spa circuit you want in, it's going to be a bit tight for us to get this side of Christmas. Is that going to present it to be an issue? So I'm not forcing myself on the client. I'm actually just asked the question. Hey, we'll quote it. We'd love to do it. Going to be pretty tight. Do you think it's something we could push into January? Because what you're trying to do is you're starting to try and build out your January. Now, that client is well entitled and you can feel this over the phone or in person. They'll be like, oh, you know, I was just hoping that I'd be in the spa with some hot chicks or hot dudes, whatever your goal is in Christmas. That's my Christmas wish, that I'd be in the spa, clothes optional, with I was going to say family, but that's weird. With some good friends, you might say, some mutual acquaintances, right? Some mucho. So that's a bit more comfortable, right? Anyway, now I've lost my train of thought. So okay. So you immediately go, all right, cool, spa, got to be done. Now it's your choice. Do you do it or do you not do it? It's actually your choice now. And you might be like, fine, we're going to get that done because they're a good client. It's going to be 4 to 6 hours worth of work. And I want the job. I don't want to lose that client. I don't want to lose that opportunity. I'm going to make sure I wrangle it. Other option is, let's say you go to a client's house and you put in some things, you're like, hey, this board legit looks like it's from 1955, right? This is what the Hilltop Hoods were singing about in their song 1955. This is a terrible board. And they go, this board needs to be upgraded. Not only that, we found some cotton cable, and to your first points here, and here. It's not urgent for tomorrow. We'd love to do it in January. How does that sound? Yeah, cool, sweet. So I've still presented the question. One job was urgent. The client said, hey, this is actually urgent. I need to be in this spa with my undies on, with my Bonds boy leg undies on before Christmas, preferably, right? But definitely on Christmas. And then the second option, the client's like, oh, you know what? That's fine in January. We're actually going away down the coast and you can get that done on the 5th, 7th, 10th, 15th, gold jacket, green jacket, couldn't care less. So you can see what I'm starting to do is I'm starting to build up January from start of November, which is 4 weeks away. Now, you're looking for January. If you don't have the commercial clients or schools or builders to push in Jan, you're going to need the rewires, the solar jobs, the 3 to 5 day jobs. You want January, if you want to have the most relaxing January ever, if you're going to be off as a business owner, You need low-level administration works and works that go for multiple days, preferably. That's going to give you the biggest breather. And you've got to know yourself when you want a breather, but you've also got to be like, if it's not your time to have a breather and you're in the first 3 to 5 years of business, it might just not be your time. You know, you might be able to go away for a week, relatively local, and come back. And if you don't like that, if you're not willing to sacrifice that, you might just lose a client. And that's cool as long as you're aware that that might happen. You can do whatever you want. No one can force you to do anything. You might get really lucky and the phone just doesn't ring. And that can happen, right? But we all know that holidays for a lot of people, a lot of homeowners and businesses, that they might not get the holiday at that point. Not all other industries shut down like the trade world shuts down. So cafes keep running. Finance stuff keeps running. So much, a lot of e-commerce is their busiest time of the year. So many, similar to cafes and restaurants, so many parts of the ecosystem, the industry ecosystem, keep running at that point. So this is back to what I was saying before. If you can sort of build a regular holiday, like you got to treat yourself like an employee. If you can try and have 4 to 6 weeks of holiday a year, 4 weeks, and that's just that can't be outrageous. That's literally what you would get as an employee. That can't be outrageous for me to say that. You know, I don't get a holiday. The last holiday I had was in 1997. That's cool. You might need to revisit that, because chances are, if you don't revisit that, you'll get tired, stressed, burnt out. The best ideas will come to you on holidays. And then you just lump your one holiday into the 22nd of December to the 14th of January. And it's literally like a closed door. Everyone can get stuffed, get out of my way. I worked hard. That's my time in that window. And you're entitled to do that, but it just might come at a cost. It just might cost you a client at that point. It just might cost you a great client. It just might cost you a January client. We've all heard those stories of like, it was January to their Sparky didn't answer the phone. I answered the phone. I went out. Now I look after this warehouse, this commercial client, that commercial client, because of this one decision that I made. That was a fantastic decision. What's not spoken about is the person that lost those clients, because no one cares about them, because if you've lost one of those clients before, it's a terrible, 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 terrible feeling. So you can pick up some fantastic clients just because people are too busy. And by no means am I telling you, hey, never have a holiday. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying have more holidays and space them out, and don't just land yourself in a Bed of Roses, Guns N' Roses style. Is that Bed of Roses or Bon Jovi? Whatever. It's irrelevant who's who, right? It might be Bon Jovi. A lot of things in life come from Bon Jovi, but don't just land yourself in a heap come December 22nd. What if you were thriving up until that point? What if you sat down in a whiteboard this afternoon, fleshed out what's what until the end of the year, started to build your case for January? Build your case for January. What day are you coming back? How long are you going to have off? Who's going to be on call during that time? If someone is going to be on call, is that person you? If that person is on you, what does it look like? If it is on you this year, how can it not be on your shoulders for next year? What are my parameters? What will I and won't I accept in November and December? Would I accept a client that hasn't been gotten back to? Would I accept a quote that's 3 weeks late? Would I call the client that, oh yeah, we can put those ceiling fans in tomorrow? The client's like, oh, actually we had them done 3 weeks ago when I called you, but you were too busy. So it's like, so much of your business presents a certain way, a certain style, a certain rhyme, a certain reason. And so many times that can be negative. It's like, oh yeah, Joey, he never answers his phone. Oh yeah, Susie, yeah, you won't hear back from her. So it's like, if you can just tighten up the ship around the service that you sell, and ask yourself the question, is the service that I sell any good? And if it is good, is it good to everyone or just a small section of people? And is that small section of people actually my desired clients? And, you know, like if you're servicing the crap out of your excellent clients, that is absolutely fantastic. But what's next year? What's next year going to look like when your ideal clients, your dream clients, when they double? Is that going to be better for you? Of course it is, right? So you're always wanting to be meeting good clients, great clients, excellent clients, and then keeping your existing ones and just stacking up more against there. So it's interesting, right? Because like, to sort of wrap it up, we'll do a few pods on this topic, but like most people start to think about January in January. And the reality is when January comes around, it's legit too late. January is your season to dream, to plan, to forecast. What does the year look like? It's incredibly hard to dream, to plan, to forecast when you are looking at no work or, hey, those two jobs don't start until February. And when you're looking at no work and staff, so you're paying people just to exist, it's so hard. And now I know what some people think, oh, I'll just let them go into negative annual leave. Try in your business for that not to be a thing. Try not to let anyone go in negative annual leave. My only parameters around that is if you just hired an absolutely gun tradie in November, they hadn't racked up enough annual leave at this point. They had a wife and young kids and a mortgage, and you asked them and you said, hey, look, I prefer you didn't go into negative annual leave. Do you need to or not? And they might be like, no, I'm good. I got some savings. Cool. In that case, sweet. Leave without pay. Or they might be like, hey, look, I really appreciate a leg up here. We don't have any savings. We need this. Okay, sweet. We'll look after you. Because they'll remember that absolutely forever. But generally try not to let anyone go into negative annual leave. It's really hard, especially if they, for whatever reason, leave. And don't forget, a week takes 3 months to come back from. So 2 weeks leave negative, it's going to take them 6 months to come back from. They're going to want holidays within that 6 months. So it's incredibly difficult terrain to navigate. It's very hard to navigate that. Also, leave without pay presents its own issues. So if you know me, I'm a full-on numbers guy, like calculate. I love calculators. And what it'll do, leave without pay, it's going to reduce the amount of billable hours you have across the year. And that's going to put a higher cost on every single overhead per billable resource. It's per hour, per year. So you can be like, oh yeah, you can give whoever you want, whatever you want. But if their 146 hours that's meant to be for that month is now 0, and that 0 is across 3 people, now you're looking at roughly 450 hours less billable time that you're going to be getting across the year. That 450 hours, essentially how it works is your operating expenses and admin expenses, basically all your non-billable expenses, go in a pool and divide by how many billable hours across that year. And if that's 450 less just because you weren't organized, that's going to put a huge amount of weight across all the pressure across the rest of the year. And it actually, it's not subtle when you see it all in the one spot in a calculator. It's actually incredibly like, wow, you can't do that. You got to be very, very careful with who you're giving leave without pay to and negative annual leave, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to delve into a few more pods about this, like over the coming weeks and months and stuff like that. But the goal is to start to think about January now. Don't let January just spring up on you. Hello. Don't just trip into Christmas. Don't just trip into Christmas. You want to thrive up until that point. So what do you need to thrive? More clients, more work, probably more money, because everyone wants to have more money, right? That's fantastic. And you get that by measuring and tracking and teaching yourself what's important and what net profit you're looking at and this kind of stuff. But don't just trip into it, but thrive into it and start to think about it now. Also start to think about the nest egg that you're going to need, right? You're talking about, let's say you go, oh yeah, I've got 4 staff members and everyone's going to have 3 weeks off. Cool. So let's just say per week of those 4 staff members, you're bringing in 20 grand a week in invoicing. Well, for those 3 or 4 weeks, that's 20 grand's not coming in. Let's call it 3 weeks. So it's 60 grand that would usually come in now not coming in. But I've still got 4 wages at 2 grand each. So I've still got 8 grand of outgoing. I'm still going to have my wholesaler bills outgoing. I've still got my tax, POAG outgoing, my BAS outgoing. I've still got all my operating expenses outgoing. So what you think is 2 to 3 weeks off is actually, well, 60 grand's not coming in, but 40 grand's still going to go out. So it's actually like $100,000 turnaround across the business. So maybe you can't afford to have that much time off. Maybe you've got to be aware, or maybe you can afford whatever you want to afford as long as you're aware. And most people just sort of fly by the seat of your pants. So we've built this December, January playbook where all this stuff is in here plus more. You got a calculator in there to work out, can you afford how much time off can you afford? How much money's in the bank? Bits and pieces like that. Because so often people are living cash flow to cash flow to cash flow to cash flow. And they're not realizing that they're living on borrowed time. They're living on borrowed money. They're using the government's money, whether it's the ATO, through POAG or through BAS, or materials bill that's not due for another 60 days. They're using all this money that's not there to float their business. And you take that away for 3 weeks, and it can expose, it can be a bit of an expose, pretty pretty it just comes out. It is pretty obvious at that point. So don't want to start thinking about January in January. Start thinking about now. And may the trade gods bless you. I'm going to do a few pods on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what a January client means to you, and how you can start chasing them. But be blessed. Get out of here. And see you guys soon. Peace. That's a wrap on another podcast. Whatever you're doing, don't be too busy to stop and check if you're making money. And above all else, you know the rules. Be kind. See you soon.